The Battle of Yorktown is the battle that basically ends the Revolutionary War. It is the large victory that George Washington needed to get the British to cease their fighting in North America. It is also a battle full of stories. The first one is the story of two British generals. One is General Henry Clinton, who is in the northern colonies in New York City, kind of hanging out, enjoying himself, and General Laurel Charles Cornwallis, who is fighting in the southern colonies. Two different ideas about how the war should be done. General Cornwallis kind of wants to bring the fight to the Continental Army and squash them. And General Henry Clinton is kind of just chilling in New York, taking his time. He's not in a big rush to go anywhere. Clinton kind of gets himself in a little bit of trouble in the South, and he ends up bringing his army into Yorktown in Virginia. And he brings his army into Yorktown in Virginia, hoping that General Cornwallis is going to come down with troops and supplies to help him out. So Yorktown is kind of like, it's a peninsula, so it's surrounded on three sides by water. So when he goes there, he kind of gets himself in a little bit of a trap, if you will. But he does think that he's going to get help from General Clinton in New York. So he's basically just kind of waiting. Well, while he's waiting, remember that the French have joined the colonists. So the French Navy has contacted General Washington, and they're ready to move up from the Caribbean to help support him in a big battle against the British Army. General Washington wants to attack the British in New York City, but the French Admiral de Grasse, in charge of the French Navy, says that Yorktown is the better option. And so what they decide to do, and Washington says, okay, the French Navy's offering to help, and this is what they want to do. He kind of has to go with it. So he abandons his plans for New York. General de Grasse is going to sail his navy up from the Caribbean and kind of surround Yorktown by water. And General Washington is going to come down south from New York along with regular French army troops, and they are going to surround Yorktown by land. When they get to Yorktown, George Washington wants to kind of just go right out and attack them. And the French are like, well, the British have a pretty good defense here. They got a pretty good fort set up. Let's surround them and force them out. So they plan to do what's called a siege. A siege is when you surround your enemy and you basically make it so they can't leave, and you fire guns at them and you cut off their supplies until basically they give up. So that's what happens. The French Navy and Continental Army and French Army surround the British at Yorktown. They shoot cannons at them for days on end. They move closer and closer and closer and closer to the city as soon as they can. They mount attacks at night to pick off British soldiers who are in the different parts of the fort, and eventually make it so the British don't have much of a choice but surrender. And if we go back to the story of the two British generals, the whole time that Cornwallis is stuck in Yorktown waiting for supplies and for help, writing letters back and forth to Clinton in New York says, yeah, I'll get there when I get there. And Cornwallis says, I need your help. And Clinton says, okay. And Cornwallis writes back again and says, I need your help. And Clinton says, yeah, I'm getting to it. And basically, when the Continental Army finally moves in on him, he writes a letter and tells Henry Clinton, listen, it's too late. And he surrenders his troops. And George Washington and the Continental Army, along with the help of the French, have captured the whole southern part of the British Army. And basically, at this point, the war is pretty much over. Now, there's another story to the Battle of Yorktown, which is a little bit sadder. On his way home, George Washington stops at Mount Vernon. He's been away for a long time. And he takes this time to kind of be with his family, be home, check out how things are going. And his young son, Jackie, Martha's son, his stepson, wanted to join the Continental Army, but until this point, he has not been allowed to. Washington thinks that he has basically must have this feeling that Yorktown is going to work. It's going to be okay. It's going to be a great victory. And so he allows Jackie to join him at Yorktown. Jackie, unfortunately, gets sick at Yorktown and ends up dying. So that's kind of the sad story that goes along with it. So George Washington wins this great victory, but his son Jackie ends up dying after the Battle of Yorktown. All right.